Hi everyone, today I'm here to give a quick start guide of the Nizo 561 Super 8 film camera. This is not an extensive tutorial review, it's just a real quick starter to get you up and running. So if you want to look deeper, there's plenty of resources out there. But here we go. So in my package, in the package you'll find the Nizo 561 and two Winecell P625 replicas. The Winecell P625 is a battery that's no longer made, so there's these companies that make these pretty expensive replicas. Even if you can find a battery of the same size, I would highly recommend not using it because these batteries are 1.35 volts, whereas most of today's batteries, even if they look similar, are usually 1.5 volts. I have tried it. It does seem to work, but I cannot guarantee it. You'll also find these are actually new 6 AA batteries. And if you ordered in advance, you might find some Super 8 Kodak Ektachrome 100D film, or Kodak Reversal Tri-X 7266, or Kodak Vision 3 negative. I'm not going to open these because they're new, but let me get an open one. So here is the Nizo 561 camera. When you take the camera out of the case, you'll notice that it looks a little bit different from a standard Nizo 561. That's because I have an aftermarket wide angle converter slash macro aftermarket lens attached. So this is what it looks like originally, but I would highly recommend keeping the wide angle adapter on because the lens, which goes from 7 millimeters to 56 millimeters, that's Super 8 sensor size, is, in my opinion, way too tight for regular use. With the wide angle adapter, I'd say maybe it looks to me, just eyeballing it, maybe something like 25 mil on a full frame. And also, if you screw off just the top portion of the wide angle adapter, this becomes a macro adapter, so it allows you to focus on very close objects. To get started, this is the battery compartment right here. When you use it, it's like this, like a trigger for the shutter, and you press this button to go like this. First thing we need to do is we need to take out the battery compartment. Unscrew these. And there's a little diagram here to show you which way to put the batteries in. Goes back in the compartment until you hear the click. And these contacts, touch these contacts to engage. And here, this is the power button. The middle where it says 0, that's off. To my right, or this right, the red, that's on. And this black circle is battery check, which I'll explain later. So I'm going to turn it on, and now you press the shutter. But on the bottom, you'll also find this secondary battery compartment. I already have 2 batteries in here. So these are the Winecell P625 batteries I was talking about. These are necessary to operate the camera because these are batteries for the internal light meter, and it also is necessary for the auto aperture. And not only the auto aperture, but even if you're in manual mode, the light meter / aperture mechanism will not work without these batteries. So without them, I guess you could shoot, but you're pretty much stuck with whatever the aperture had been set to before the batteries were last taken out. So now we're ready to go. Now that we've got both batteries in, we'll click it to go. And so there's a few controls here. If you look inside the Finder and then you push this power button towards the black circle while you're looking inside, there's an internal light meter going from f1.8 to f22. When you push it, you'll see the light meter move, and as long as the meter is to the left of f11, that means you've got good batteries in here. And so there's a few controls here. It's pretty interesting for this day and age, these buttons here. Oh, I forgot to turn it on. Turn it on, and that is power zoom. Power zoom on a Super 35 camera, but I prefer to just turn it. Some of the important controls you'll see are here. This is the aperture dial. If you keep it on the red dot where it says auto, as explained, it's auto aperture. If you want to go manual, you can turn it to manual, and you've got like, I don't know, like, what is this, like a little more than 180 degrees of turn. And if you look inside while you turn it, you will see the light meter needle move. So it looks like the most counterclockwise starting position is f1.8, and you turn it all the way the other way is f22. But I usually keep it on auto, and that does the job. Another thing, there's this tiny green button here. Even if you're on manual, if you press, while you're pressing this green button, it will become auto. This second dial here is for time lapse, and unless you're doing something crazy with time lapse shooting stars, which I don't think is a good idea with Super 8 film, but just keep it, just trust me, just keep this on auto, the red dot auto. Next over here, this is the frame rate. The red dot, which denotes default, is 18, but I keep it on 24 because that's, in today's day and age, I think 24 is more desirable. Or you can go to 56 for slow motion, just so you can hear at 18. That's what it sounds like. 24 and 56. Wow, that's intense. Another thing you can do is you can keep it on 24, and in the middle, there's this button that says 56. What that does is, let's say you're shooting 24 frames per second, and then while you're shooting, if you press this button, it'll burst. So it's you can kind of do like this semi-speed ramp. I kind of like it because as it does the ramp, the exposure changes, and it gives you this real retro, interesting feel. This button right here, there's an icon for a sun and an icon for a light bulb. That's pretty self-explanatory. Tungsten and daylight. So this is a concept that was kind of foreign to me, but depending on what kind of film you use, for example, Kodak Tri-X Reversal 7266, it says on the box that it's daylight 200 ASA, tungsten 160 ASA. Let's see, what about this one? Kodak Ektachrome, that's just 100D. I guess it depends on the type of film. Some film has different ASA ratings for daylight and tungsten, so you set this accordingly. I just realized there's a button that says +1. I'm assuming that that's probably like an overexposure button. And moving on, you already know, but this button, that's the shutter or record button. And let's say you want to be recording for an extended period, and you don't want to keep your finger on here the whole time. There's this orange little thing right here As you hold down the record button, you can move this forward and then it'll just keep recording until the film rolls out. This thing here opens the film compartment. Oh, you can actually see, I don't know if you can see it from there, but oh yeah, you can see the shutter opening there. This is not a new roll of film, but you put it in with this sprocket facing towards this side and you close it. And that's easy as that. Because this is not a new roll of film, this meter's not working, but you'll see that it starts from 50 feet or AKA 15 meters. And as you keep rolling, you'll see the dial come down to 0. And that indicates how much film you have left. With a 50-foot cartridge like this, at 15 frames per second, you get 3 minutes and 20 seconds. At 24 frames per second, you'll get 2 minutes and 30 seconds. At 54 frames per second, that's 1 minute, 5 seconds. Wow, you gotta use your film wisely. Let's see, what else is there? There are a few buttons here and there, but it's really not worth even mentioning. For example, there's a connector so you can use the camera like this. If you were to have this special cable that goes from here to, I think it was this one right here, but I don't have that cable and I don't see the need for it. A few other things, this is zoom, this is the focus, and no, there is no manual focus. Unless you engage macro, you've got minimum focus distance. Let me eyeball it. That looks like it's about I'd say eyeballing it, minimum focus distance is roughly 1.5 feet. If you go to macro, wow. If you go to macro, minimum focus distance I'd say is roughly somewhere between 1 and 2 inches. And if you're used to old film cameras, the vertically split crosshair in the middle, and you'll see 2 images that are kind of like this, and as you turn the focus ring, when the 2 images on the top and bottom align, that's when you're in focus. And just so you know, when you're zoomed in, the viewfinder can look kind of funky. Distorted images, but that's just the nature of this camera. That's not exactly how the developed film will look like. Just another piece of advice is up here are the light sensors, so just don't cover this up or else your light readings will be totally messed up. Over here, there's this ring by the eyepiece, and that's for people that are either nearsighted or old people like me that are farsighted. You can adjust to your eyes. And the last piece of advice is just don't forget to turn it off because it's gonna drain the batteries. And once you're done with your film roll, you pretty much just take it out and you can get results like this. One thing I forgot to mention, this Nitso 561, this is one of the newer, maybe if not one of the newest Super 8 cameras to be released. This unit was made in 1975. It's one of the last production models. Please handle it carefully because if anything breaks, it's a pretty big hassle to get it repaired. So please treat it with care. I hope you enjoy this camera and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.